6:30, we're going to call the school committee meeting to order. Annually, I, as superintendent, am responsible for three things for this meeting. I'm responsible for calling the meeting to order, for asking for nominations for a chairperson for the year, and then to relinquish the gavel to the new chairperson. So having said that, we will stand for the Pledge of Allegiance first, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So, first order of business, as is tradition, may I have a nomination from the floor for nominations for chairperson for the 2018-2019 school year?
I'd like to make is it a motion for the nomination of Bill Buckley for chairperson for the school year 2018-2019?
So we have a motion from the floor to nominate Mr. William Buckley as chairperson of the Walpole School Committee for the school year 2018-2019. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. All those in favor? All those opposed? Abstain? It is unanimous. Mr. Buckley, I relinquish the chair and the gavel to you. I don't have a chair, but gavel, but here we have a chair.
Another peaceful transition of power.
Yes.
Here, do you want your name, please?
Well, good evening. It's a lot more slimming back here with the whole table in front of you. The side shots were tough for the last 6 years.
Here we go.
They put me over in the corner. At my first meeting, I had too much fun with Mike Barry, and then I got off to the side. So this is good. Well, thank you. Good evening. The next order of business is a motion needed for vice chairperson. Could I take a motion for vice chairperson?
I'll make a motion for vice chair for Miss Jen Gayotzitz.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. Motion by Mrs. Muccini, second by Mrs. Cyrek. All those in favor? Opposed? Abstained? 7-0-0. Excellent.
Should we do a little chair movement?
That's okay. I didn't bring my packet, so I was going to look on with Link for the rest of the evening. Excellent. We will move on now to our third order of business, recognitions. Ms. Emily Murray and Harlan Cook, NCTA award recipients.
I think, Mr. Chairman, we may want to listen to the student reports. So
Fair enough, as that is number 3.
Is it too late to reconsider those votes?
Fair enough.
You're all right, Bill. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise.
Hello, I'm Maggie Jackson, rising senior at Walpole High. On Thursday, it was our last day of classes, and finals began on Friday, ending this Wednesday. Within the last couple of weeks, it has been a very eventful time. From the seniors' final walk down their old elementary schools, senior dinner, senior class pizza party, and of course, graduation. Through great speeches and acceptance, Walpole High School once again put on a great graduation ceremony that will be remembered to all who took part. Sports at Walpole High have been absolutely dominating. Baseball made it into the Super 8 this year, being the top 8 seed in the state. They also were the lowest seed to make it to the semifinals. This was pictured on the cover of the Boston Herald last Wednesday. Girls lacrosse had finished their first season ever to be undefeated and are still continuing the streak. They will play tomorrow in Chicopee at the semifinals. Boys lacrosse finished their season off last Tuesday in the semifinals against Westwood after double overtime. Before summer, Student Council has put together a Spirit Week. This took place last week. Monday was tie-dye day, Tuesday was Hawaiian themed, Wednesday was a whiteout, and Thursday was Jersey Day. Also, Thursday before school, we had a Dunkin' Donuts tailgate in which Stuco provided boxes and boxes of donuts, bagels, and muffins. Last week, students voted for who they think their class president/vice president and also representatives should be for next year. All students were sent a voting sheet via Google Docs, and winners were announced last Thursday. Summer readings have also been posted. There are numerous options for students to pick. Teachers have chosen their favorite books, and this year some even chose their favorite podcasts. Walpole High is offering many summer programs, some for mainly seniors, but also many others. Some being college essay prep, get it done, fast forwarding your college applications, and Walpole all about the blues jazz camp. Everyone is looking forward to summer and wrapping up their 2017 to 2018 year at Walpole High. Thank you.
Nice job.
Thank you, Maggie.
Have a great night, guys.
Thank you. Before we move on to item number 4, recognitions, I am reminded by Superintendent Lynch that it is customary during the school committee reorganization to make a couple of comments by the incoming chairman of the school committee. And one of the things I'd like to articulate now is my thanksgiving to Mrs. Gayotzitz for her service in the last year, the last 6 years, 3 of them together with me, on the school committee, and for the yeoman's work you've done, not only in this boardroom, but down the hall, in the finance committee room, in the town meeting, throughout our community, advocating tirelessly for our students and for the services, especially the financial services that they require to get the education they need to achieve excellence. So I'm deeply grateful for all of your work, and I'm happy that you will remain as vice chair as we work together. Obviously, as we'll discuss throughout new business and the superintendent's report, this year will require a great deal out of all 7 of us, and it'll be a tremendous collaborative team effort of shared leadership and shared responsibility as we go forward to tackle some very large initiatives in the next year. There's a lot on our plate, and something just this policy-wise this morning that we have to talk about under, I think, maybe a Beacon Hill report. So as we go forward together, I'm very grateful for your confidence in me and for your service, Jen, and I'm excited for the year ahead. So the next part of our meeting is one of my favorite parts. It's the recognitions where we can recognize the excellence of our teachers, administrators, and students. And today we will recognize Emily Murray and Harlan Cook.
So Emily Murray has just received a very distinct honor from the Norfolk County Teachers Association. It's the old NCTA is the oldest group in the country of teacher organizations. It's an organization dedicated to the services of teachers and students. Each year, the NCTA holds an annual awards to honor teachers, lay people, and students. This year, 2 of our staff were award recipients at the ceremony. The following excerpt regarding Emily was taken from Jess Ferguson's article in the Walpole Rebellion, and it shows you how wonderful and prolific our students are in writing. Walpole High School English teacher and speech and debate coach Emily Murray was commended by the Walpole Teachers Association and the Norfolk County Teachers Association at their annual award dinner for recognition for a teacher who demonstrates excellence and service to the community. Murray was recognized for her commitment to the speech and debate team, a club she started and has coached for the past 7 years. What stood out about Ms. Murray was the fact that she took a small club with no funding and turned it into one of the most successful clubs we have at Walpole High School. The students are achieving and succeeding at rates that would not be possible without her dedication. She gives up weekends and countless nights in order to support her students. So for that, Emily, we commend you and we honor you this evening. Would you like to say a few words?
Sure, yeah.
She's a speech teacher, of course.
I know, I was like, am I going to be able to say something? So I do have a cell phone. I know that's, what? Why does she have a cell phone? I actually received a letter, thank you note on my desk today, and I wanted to share it with all of you just to kind of sum up why I do what I do, because it definitely resonated with me when I read this thank you note. It says, Dear Mrs. Murray, no words can express how grateful I am to have you as a teacher and coach, but here goes. Thank you so much for all your support, advice, and care that you've given me both in public speaking and on the speech team. If it wasn't for you, I would never have joined speech and had so much fun and success. I entered my class shy and unsure, and I'm leaving freshman year confident and outgoing. Your willingness to help your students, whether it be helping me with a script for my Houston trip, or even coming to my house to help Nolan and I work on our speech duo, is something I'm so thankful for. And then she says, thank you again. So I was definitely that freshman who was super shy and nervous. And then starting speech when I was at Natick High definitely helped me come out of my shell and become the person that I am today. So that just kind of is a tidbit of why I do what I do. So thank you so much. I'm still on cloud 9 after getting the award, so I really appreciate it. So thanks.
Thank you very much, Ms. Murray. I know for those who might not have seen the school committee meeting, it was about 2 months ago. It was so wonderful to have your students in and your team, and just to see the energy that group of young people have, the camaraderie that they have, and it's really a competitive team in a non-athletic setting, and it's wonderful. I think we talk a lot about how our students strive to achieve excellence in many different venues, and what really struck me was I think many of the young students were fairly emotional about their experience and the bonds that they have, and so I love your emails that are generally at 1 in the morning on a Saturday night after a long tournament, talking about the achievements of our kids, and I think that's wonderful, and we're so happy to have young students go all the way to DC from a program that started just a few years ago. That is a tremendous growth and something we can all be very proud of. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Elmer. So our next recipient is Harlan Cook, and Harlan is with us this evening. And Harlan has been working with the Walpole schools for 49 years, as well as 2 years that Harlan taught in Michigan. Harlan began at Walpole High School as a math teacher. He then became a guidance counselor and special education chairperson. After his retirement, Harlan was asked to assist the special ed department just for an audit, which is about 2 weeks. And he's been with us ever since as a procedural assistant, both at Boyden School and his central office. Harlan was honored again at NCTA, and I'll read from what they said about him that evening, and I think it speaks volumes about Harlan's dedication. Harlan has been on the board of directors of NCTA for 48 years, serving many years as director, treasurer, and organizer of the annual awards dinner in June. Harlan was awarded the NCTA's President's Award. The following is an excerpt from his dinner, and I will quote the executive director. The NCTA Executive Board welcomes this opportunity to proudly recognize Harlan Cook's valued contribution as an educational leader of Norfolk County. He has served in all positions on the NCTA Executive Board, including his service as a most effective Chief Executive Officer and Chief Financial Officer, in addition to varied dedicated service for his 48 years. In doing so, Harlan has gained an in-depth understanding of the structure and organizational needs of NCTA. Through adaptation and implementation of positive and continual change, he promotes the furtherance of the organization. Many thanks to Harlan for his unending zeal to prompt the best in standards of affordable quality professional educational opportunities, to promote recognition of educators and service assistants, and to be that gentle force that is endlessly engaged in the continuation of the Norfolk County Teachers Association. An appreciation for his dedication, and we appreciate his dedication and look forward to this assistance in many years to come, even in his retirement. So this is an award that Harlan was provided that evening. Over here. And we'll pass that around. And he also received a certificate as well as Emily. So Harlan, we applaud you. And we'd enjoy a few words if you had a few. You usually aren't sure of
You know, it's really funny because I started here at the high school, and man, the changes I've seen since 1967 are incredible. And I was president of the Walpole Teachers Association for 2 or 3 years, chairman of the negotiation team, which that's how I lost all my hair back in the 70s. I was on the other side quickly, and I was also a MTA delegate. I was an MTA board of director in Boston for 7 years, and my wife, we had 4 little children, and my wife said to me, you either got to give some of this up or we're getting divorced. I was in Boston 3 nights a week and Framingham for 2 nights a week, and so I gave up the WTA, which I was chairman of the scholarship committee and everything else in town. I also was on the committee for the health insurance. And when I sat back and thought, what am I going to keep and what am I going to give up? Well, I gave up the WTA, I gave up the MTA, and I stayed with the NCTA because the NCTA does things that are for the teachers and for the students, and we do a lot of really good things. We give out scholarships every year. We give out book awards to all the towns every year to a student that's been, his name has been sent by the town that's going into education, and then we give out 2 major scholarships, which are called the Howland L. Cook Education Scholarships, and we present them at the same awards banquet. There's about 800 or 900 teachers there every year, and that's a big undertaking. But I used to run conventions, and one of the conventions I ran, my main speaker was Kennedy, and that's when they were throwing tomatoes at the bus when he was coming out. And I was teaching at Walpole High School at the time, and it kept coming over in the PA. Mr. Cook, will you please come to the office and talk to Kennedy's office? Have you got security all under control? And of course, he was at Blue Hills, that's what we were speaking of. And I was only like 24, 25 years old. I was a nervous wreck. But anyways, thanks for the award. But one other thing I'll tell you is that when I was president of Walpole, when I was teaching at the high school, my 2nd year teaching there, I got a call from John Powers, who was the superintendent at the time, and his office was right down where I live, the food pantry. Okay, that's where he was. And he calls me at the farm because he knew where my family's farm was in Franklin. And he said, Howland, I need you to get down to my office tomorrow. I need to see you. I'm like, oh my God, I'm getting fired. I had only taught 2 years in the system. He calls me and he goes, you're president of the Walpole Teachers Association. I said, oh no, I'm not. Paul Soden is. He said, oh no, Paul Soden left for Appalachia for a year. You're the president. And this is the part you'll get the biggest kick out of. He sat there, he looked at me, and because I could have fallen under the table, what did I know? He had 5 grievances, okay? He says, okay, Howland, we got 5 grievances. And he puts all 5 of them on the table. I looked at him, what the heck's a grievance? I'm like, and so he said, okay, so he says, this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna do this, 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 and he went through all 5. And then he says, what do you think? I said, I think that's great. So then he calls me back about 2 or 3 weeks later, and he says, all solved, no problem. So could you see that today?
No.
So it has come a long ways when we went into bargaining, and I mean, before we sit with the school committee, and what do you need, 2%, 3%? You know, it was whatever we wanted back in the 60s and 70s was pretty good. But anyways, I've been here a long time. 1 more year anyways, and I'll be 50 in Walpole.
Excellent.
Thank you, Mr. Cook. Mr. Cook was a truly tremendous guidance.
I see my own students up there.
The rest of them made good. I tell you in the viewing audience, the rest of Harlan's guidance students made good, I promise. But you and your lovely wife, who also has had a long career here in Walpole, what are you chasing, like 20 grandkids or something like that? 18. I talked to him last week, and he said, I've got like 7 graduations to go to in the next 3 weeks, and I think it's so wonderful. And one of the things you were talking with me about just like 10 minutes ago, and I think is really important, is all of the work that you were doing to kind of set up all of the professional development and just like the nuts and bolts. There's so many folks here at Central Office who work all through the summer helping our teachers and our professionals get the tools they need and the things that in line to get the professional development and the types of experiences they need to enrich themselves over the summer and throughout the year and just be the best they can for our students. So, Mr. Cook, your character, you're an asset to the community and to our school system, and thank you so much for all you've done. Nancy as well.
I just wanted to add, when I saw this, I thought, oh no, that you were finally thinking maybe that you were done. And then I noticed that they put the final sentence that says, we appreciate his dedication and look forward to this assistance in the many years to come with all things NCTA and Walpole Public Schools. Just want to add. So, thank you very much, Harlan.
Excellent.
So we'll request Emily back to the podium, and we have some business to conduct. Emily is requesting an out-of-state field trip for the Walpole High School speech and debate team to Fort Lauderdale, Florida from January 10th through January 14th, 2019, to compete and participate in the Sunvitational
Sunvitational.
tournament, and compete with students from across the country. And I would recommend this for approval, but Emily, if you wouldn't mind providing
Sure.
details.
Yeah, so we took 19 students this past January to the Sunvitational, and one of my many emails talked about how we had 5 students make it to a final round. So that was very exciting. We were really going into this thinking, you know, it's extremely hard to qualify for a national tournament, but this will give all students an opportunity to compete at a national level. And so when we had a lot of students make it to a final, it was so thrilling and exciting. It was a 2-day tournament. It's actually going to be 3 days now, so we're going to be starting that Friday competition into Sunday. They're going to try to wrap up awards earlier that Sunday. We're planning ahead because we got a lot of goals next year. We're actually hosting the novice tournament again at the high school. We hosted it 2 years ago, and I realized you have to really reserve that building ahead of time, so I made sure to reserve it early this year. So we got that tournament that we're hosting. And then we are going to the Yale Invitational. One of our students is going to that tournament with her mother. And then we have the Harvard tournament that we're going to. So we've got a lot of stuff on our plate, making more progress, so I wanted to get this trip planned and ready to go, and I could do it over the summer instead of stressing about it in the fall. So we're very excited. 17 students.
So the total number of students is 17, 3 chaperones, so it's well within the school committee accepted ratio. We're hoping that the price will be less than $1,500.
Oh yes,
per
it's actually
pupil.
gone way down now that
Good.
it's 3 chaperones, and buying the flights now is actually, my travel agent talked today that it's going way down. So that was just more like a approximate with food and everything.
I would recommend approval.
Thank you very much. We trust you will bring us back good news from the
Yeah.
Sunvitational.
And Kathy
Um,
Garvin is actually one of the chaperones
Oh,
because
awesome.
she's
Oh,
judged in the
nice.
past, and she really wanted to come.
Excellent.
So we're very excited. Yeah.
Great.
All right.
May I have a vote to approve the speech and debate team's trip to Fort Lauderdale, Florida on January 19th, 2019?
Motion to approve the field trip.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Breen, seconded by Mrs. Muccini. All those in favor? Opposed, abstained, 700.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Have
you.
a great summer.
Thank you.
So next on the agenda, we have Ann Arpin, who is Director of Digital Learning. Ann will present tonight and give the committee an update on the digital literacy statement and their vision, and also provide information on Fuse Fellows information. So 2 parts tonight. Thank you, Ann.
Thanks very much. So about a year ago, following the formation of the Digital Learning Task Force, which consisted of teachers, parents, administrators, and students, we embarked on a creation of a digital literacy statement. This was finalized and introduced this past fall. Since then, a variety of digital learning initiatives have been undertaken. I thought it was wise to re-communicate the statement a few short weeks ago, because it certainly, the vision itself was becoming much clearer to everyone, and it was more relevant. So it was a timely reminder and an opportunity to recap also the growth and support of digital learning in our district. So the statement itself, I think you have it in your packet. We did have something to display, but yeah, that's not working, so. It does serve as an anchor focused on student learning and pedagogy related to digital tools. Throughout thoughtful integration of digital tools and resources that are age-appropriate, engaging, enable personalization, and are relevant to the curriculum, prepare our students for success now and as they progress through and beyond their years as a student. As I said, there's kind of 2 parts to this. I do want to first give you an update on some of the exciting successes that our digital learning coaches at elementary and middle schools have seen this year. Karen Wolf, who is assigned to Elman Fisher, and Nancy Carroll, who's assigned to Boyden and OPR, and Dave Cuzzy to Burden Johnson. They've spent this year building relationships with teachers and gaining knowledge of all curriculum areas at their level. providing real-time coaching, instruction, modeling lessons with students. They've all earned Google Level 1 teacher certification. They participated in the Teachers 21 coaching course and attended numerous conferences and workshops. And I would like to recognize their hard work, dedication, and commitment to teaching and learning in the digital age. Their work is grounded in the SAMR model, which is the model that focuses on creating lessons where technology acts not as a substitution, but really enables transformation of a learning experience. This pushes learning from being passive to active for our kids. And here's a couple of examples of what that looks like in action that we've seen this year, just a few. For example, there was a lesson French students would take that ended in a presentation called About Me that they would present in person to their classmates speaking in French. And the teacher would grade the lesson. Transforming the lesson using digital resources and tools meant they this year started recording their About Me presentations in French, and then all students would viewed that lesson and provided individual feedback to each other on that presentation. I assume they also did that part in French. A second one was an activity that has been done for years called a triangle trade map in social studies in middle school, where they would basically cut and paste images onto a digital map. This year, transforming that lesson, students created a Google drawing on a template and then embedded video and articles and their research on that trade onto their maps to create an interactive experience, again, shared with all students. At the elementary schools, PowerPoint lessons, essentially, where teachers would show it on the projector to the class, whole class activities to teach various concepts, transformed by adapting these slides to incorporate Nearpod, which is a digital assessment that the students, while the presentation was going, would take as the presentation was going along to gauge their understanding and provide real-time feedback to the teacher, but to the kids as well, and enable redirection of lessons in real time as the lesson was being done. Another one, grade 1 has a number of the day activity that they've always done, paper and pen or on through the whiteboard. Transforming it, the grade 1 students put the data into Google Sheets and started analyzation of it in a way and creating graphs to visualize it. And the last one I thought was interesting was a math lesson where typical worksheet, and the kids would have manipulatives and would have to sort coins or collect coins or, figure out the value and just write down the answers. Now with interactive digital tools offered actually through NCTM, students can go on and use the digital virtual manipulatives and select various modes that meet their needs. So if they are good at collecting or sorting or whatever, they can do those activities but then move on into the next level. So in addition that at the elementary level, the digital learning coaches also implemented digital citizenship, online safety, and introductory coding lessons as a co-taught model within the classroom as appropriate. The digital citizenship and online safety lessons consisted of components from existing curriculum provided by the Google's Be Internet Awesome for the younger kids and the Common Sense Media. They covered things such as plagiarism, citing sources, appropriate online behavior, talking to kids about their digital footprint, protecting their personal information online, password privacy, and online stranger danger. And the coding and early engineering concepts, the coaches facilitated the Hour of Code school-wide for each of the schools. They had an activity using BBots, which you may have seen, where they created an obstacle course by coding those BBots. And FabMaker Studio is another tool that they used to create Clubhouse paired with the book Horace and Morris. So this coming year, digital learning coaches will be actively involved with the new science curriculum and will continue to build consistency of valuable learning experiences across the buildings. Second part is some of the other ways the digital literacy vision are being supported in the district include this Fuse Fellowship. And this is, I mentioned the digital learning coaches. We have the 3 positions for the elementary and middle. At the high school, we solicited volunteers for this Fuse Fellowship. This is a partnership between TEC, the Education Cooperative, and Highlander Institute. And Highlander Institute implemented this Fuse Rhode Island project a few years ago. What it means is there is a fellowship. We have one Walpole teacher that is matched to Dedham High School. In return, we're getting 2 fellows who are matched to Walpole High. And it's an 18-month program. They're gaining in-depth knowledge of best practices around digital learning, blended learning. The 2 coaches will spend 5 days each with us next year, working directly within classrooms with other, they're called early adopters, so a group of Walpole High teachers who have opted to be these early adopters to work with them. And our Fuse Fellow spends 5 days in Dedham. And at the end of that term, they return to their home schools with that knowledge and continue on. And they still are teachers. They still are teaching all year round and all that. So we're very excited about that. I think that's a great, Rhode Island has seen a lot of success with that program, so we're expecting the same. And then for initiatives this coming year, all students in grades 7 through 12 will have a Chromebook assigned to them with take-home privileges. Elementary through grade 6, continue expansion of the shared carts in every grade. We're looking at the sustainability plans for this program to keep it going. As Chromebooks age, obviously, they would need to be replaced. So we're looking at there's a number of different options for that. And the other supports and initiatives under the curriculum areas, we are looking at incorporating digital resources at every opportunity to make sure we're offering the 21st century types of learning experiences. The new science textbooks that have been adopted are online. We've been exploring the use of open ed resources, and Mike Donahue, the department chair at social studies at the high school, created a unit completely online using open ed resources. It's on the civil rights movement, came out really well. He also surveyed his kids, the students, after that and asked them, did you access your textbook? Or not, and they got very positive feedback from the kids. We're looking at adaptive learning products as well to help that personalization. Adaptive learning products, one product that we're piloting is Freckle. It's a math assessment program for the elementary level. And the adaptive nature of these programs means that a student will go on and do various activities and then assessments, and the product itself measures where they are and provides the reinforcement. So they're working at their pace and at their level and getting pushed where they belong. So, and emphasis on resources to promote the 4 C's, communication, collaboration, critical thinking, creativity are always on the forefront. That's where our target goes. And ongoing evaluation and upgrades to infrastructure, of course, which is wireless access points and bandwidth. And so those were some of the examples I also provided in the email. I'm open for questions or things that.
Mrs. Gallivan.
I was looking at the Fuse Fellows and just curious, I have 2 questions. What subject areas will the coaches come and help out in Walpole? And is there a way that you then disseminate what people learn to more than just the set of people who are actually sort of first points of contact?
So the Fuse are, the early adopters come from every department.
Oh,
So
cool.
they're working within every department.
Nice.
And one Fuse Fellow is from Needham High, and she's an instructional technology coach, I believe, there. So she's been exposed to all curriculum areas. The other is, her background is more in English with Phoenix Academy. So that the concept is that they are working with the Fuse Fellow, these early adopters, and they are spreading the wealth within their department as well. And then the Fuse Fellows can also, again, they get missions that they have to accomplish, basically, through the Fuse program. So that was the intent, to get that spread
Thank you.
amongst
Yep.
all relevant areas.
Anyone else? Thank you very much, Ann.
Yeah.
You're doing a great job.
Appreciate it.
Next item?
Next item, under new business, we have our anti-bullying meeting update. Mrs. Gallivan, would you like to begin our discussion?
Sure. Last week on Wednesday night, we had a meeting to address concerns by parents after their experiences with bullying or harassment or any kind of difficult social interactions. It was a very, very important meeting, and it's a topic that's just very, very challenging to all of us. I think I know I speak for my colleagues that we are always looking to see if there's a way that we could do better, and I know that we've all been reading and thinking and trying to consider ways that we can do better. I just thought of a couple of things that are just challenges that when kids are in a difficult situation and it involves some level of punishment at the school district level, it's very hard to get a full agreement. In some situations, people are going to say we've been too strict. In other situations, people are going to say we've been too lenient. I think that it's important for us to keep tuned into what parents are feeling, and I think that we can improve communication. Two things that I sort of wrote as notes to myself is that there's a quote from the movie Wonder that says, "When faced with the choice between being right and being kind, always choose kind." And life isn't as easy as that, but I think it's a good guiding principle. And I also was reading something else this weekend that said we should use our opinions to start discussions and not end them. And I think that's a challenge when people are coming at things from a different point of view. But I hope to be part of moving the district forward, and I know my colleagues are too. I think we're committed to strong communication, which involves listening and talking, and enhancing empathy, which I have come to learn in most practical terms, for me at least, is walking in another person's shoes, the person who doesn't have the same experience or role that you do. So it was a very important meeting, and that's pretty much how I would summarize it.
Thank you. Anyone else like to add? Mr. Ryan?
Sure, yeah, make a comment. I think that from my perspective, the meeting concluded, I think, very well from the vantage point. I think we had a room full of people, community, pretty diverse group. I think that was affirmed during the meeting. And I think every single person in the room is upset that there's bullying in the town of Walpole, right? And it's not limited to Walpole, right? But is absolutely, and we have no tolerance for it, and everyone is upset about it, right? And that's understood. But I also think it was, universally accepted that the solution is going to involve the community. And I think Andy Zattoli was there. He was a principal from Natick that has some expertise in this area, and I think he said it first, is that he said the solution is probably tenfold. You know, I think that's an arbitrary number. It might actually be 20-fold, right? Meaning it's got to come from, the schools absolutely have a part of it, a part in the solution, whether it's the teachers, certainly the students themselves, the administrators, the school committee, the police department, the parents, and every other, group or stakeholder in town, right? I think because it's a community issue, right? And I think it's recognized that the solution, well, to the extent that we can strive to beat this problem down, and if we can negate it altogether, that would certainly be the goal, right? It's going to require the community to contribute. Meaning contributions from all of those groups I just said, and probably more, right? And so I think we reached that agreement, and now the hard work lies ahead of us, right? Is to how do we actually get to that point, right? Meaning as a community. So I think we're all realizing that's an important charge, and we all accept the responsibility to try to get there.
By way of timeline, Dr. Lynch, our next meeting is?
Well, we heard loud and clear from people that they would like to be part of the solution. They would like to continue to be heard. There was obviously a lot of anger in the room on how bullying's been handled, and that has to change. I accept responsibility for that, and we'll work to improving the conditions in the schools and to make our schools as safe as possible, to help students through these conflicts and help parents understand what the schools are doing and how we can improve. So to that end, we've formulated what we call a Safe Schools Initiative Committee. There are over 100 people, including parents, students, dozen students, teachers, counselors, principals who have offered to serve on the committee. We're meeting June 27th. We plan on surveying those people first to see if we can determine more themes and goals that we can create to work on. But I think we all have to listen to what people have to say, to feel their pain, and to do what we can to move forward. And I think that's what I will do, and commit to the community to do that. And hopefully we can make schools feel safer for children.
Thank you. I think to Mr. Ryan's point, we are engaging at the beginning of a process that is going to be very collaborative in nature and long. And I think it's heartening to see the number of stakeholders who have already articulated their desire to be part of this process, and the number of people who would like to help move us towards a solution and a better mode of operating for the Walpole Public Schools. And I know I'm personally looking forward to next Wednesday's meeting. Very good, and obviously we'll through our e-notes, through meetings like this, and as well as the meeting next Wednesday, we'll be continuing to give information to the community. It did go out in the middle of this afternoon that Walpole Public Media has made the first meeting available online, which is now viewable via in their on-demand page. It's the last updated video, and that's being shown in the normal May 31st school committee slot in the rotation as well. But you can see it on demand, and we sent that out to the whole Walpole Public School community. Excellent. Moving on to old business, Elm Street principal search update.
So we're pleased to announce we have not a finalist, an appointment of Carrie Bergero, who will be the next Elm Street School principal. Carrie has worked as assistant principal in Sharon for many years. She was a strong candidate. She was the overall favorite of the interview team, the site visitation team, the staff open interview, and the parent open interview. She passed with flying colors on her reference checks, and we're thrilled to have her as a member of our team. We'd like to thank Dr. Jean Kenny for chairing the task force. She did a wonderful, thorough job. And we'd also like to thank the parents of Elm Street School for participating, and the staff, as well as school committee members. So Carrie also has ties to town. She's married to Ross, who grew up in town. And I couldn't be happier for the students of Elm Street School.
Excellent. Now, the school she's coming from, if I'm not mistaken, it is a Blue Ribbon school as well?
It is a Blue Ribbon School.
So there were, what,
Heights
three?
Elementary.
There were 3 in the state, and we have one here in Walpole in Old Post Road, and we've now successfully sniped an administrator from the one next door. That's good stuff. We like that. I think, you know, it goes to our goal of achieving excellence, and when we see excellence nearby, of luring it here. So that's wonderful. It's the Heights, right?
The Heights, that's right.
Excellent. Very good. Wonderful. Well, thank you very much for that update. Moving on, we have second reading of revised policy JKAA.
Yes. So we have minor changes. You'll see under school personnel shall use physical restraint with 2 goals in mind. A, to administer a physical restraint only when needed to protect a student or a member of the school community from assault, imminent serious serious physical harm. And B, to prevent or minimize any harm to the student as a result of the use of physical restraint. So it's a very minor change. We also have a deletion of a paragraph on page 2. You'll see in your packet. And it's really just to keep abreast of current regulations and laws promulgated by the Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education.
Yeah, I know the use of medication restraints are gone.
Right.
Just about across the board now. I work in on the weekends in senior care, and they're moving that out as well. So I need a vote to approve marked policy JKAA, physical restraint of students. May I have a motion?
Motion to approve policy JKAA.
Motion by Mr. Breen. Second.
Second?
Second by Mrs. Gallivan. All those in favor? Opposed? Abstained? 7-0-0. Moving on, superintendent's report.
So the communication protocols, we've talked about revising the protocols. I think it's important that I hear from the community June 27th to determine what type of communication they expect from my office, from me personally. In the past, what has happened is when a complaint comes in, we look at the chain of command within the school district, and that has been delegated to certain layers. If they've spoken to the teacher, we'll go to the assistant principal, the principal, maybe the assistant superintendent for a curriculum issue, and then to me personally. We've temporarily suspended that chain of command protocol, whereas I would just have my administrative assistant offer to meet with a parent at the school. So now I'm personally calling every complainant that calls in, regardless, and then we're determining the chain of command and the protocols. And we'll look to this communication, maybe a communication goal or subcommittee of the overall anti-bullying Safe Schools Committee to see, is that what the community wants? Is that what the community expects? And we'll move on from there. But as far as this temporarily goes, if you do call, you will get a personal call from me back, and then we'll talk about delegation and chain of command in that conversation, and also listen to what you're experiencing at the present time. I think that's important at this point in time, to start healing some of the concerns.
Excellent. I think to your point, the conversations next Wednesday are going to be very critical in informing how we move forward. Anything else?
That's it.
Subcommittee reports. I can do a legislative one. Unfortunately, by way of backstory, this committee, for those who may not have been following this very crucial initiative of ours over the past, I don't know, in Nancy's case, very long time, a dialogue with our legislators about additional revenue for the Walpole Public Schools. And I think when we sought the override now 6 years ago, we committed ourselves to seeking out any other forms of revenue available to us and dialoguing with the state. I have the benefit of working in my day job for the Walpole Legislative Delegation. So we work obviously very closely. Katja's in the audience, she's in my office all the time. It's not my office, I should say. I get to work there. And one of the initiatives that we and many people through the Massachusetts Association of School Committees have been very hopeful about, as far as a tool to generate more revenue for cities and towns, has been the so-called millionaire's tax or fair share amendment, which was slated to be on the ballot this fall, which would possibly generate enough revenue to fund the Foundation Budget Review Commission's findings. Now, the Foundation Budget Review Commission being the legislative commission that looked into how much local aid we get, found it to be severely lacking, and prescribed that we do a lot more to address that. Unfortunately, this morning, the Supreme Judicial Court, which is Massachusetts' version of the Supreme Court, viewed that ballot question as unconstitutional. In Massachusetts, unlike our federal constitution, and I'm not going to remember the section, I think it might be 5, we cannot have a graduated income tax. It is prohibited within our constitution. So we can't tax those who make more at a higher level. It's unconstitutional. So the ballot question was declared unconstitutional by the SJC, and many members of Superintendent's Association, the school committees, and the legislature had hoped that would be an avenue to perhaps generate $500 million for education in the Commonwealth in the coming years. So while we are frustrated, we are undeterred, and we will continue to work with our colleagues at MASC, MASS, and in the legislature to find next steps, because that question will not be on the ballot, unfortunately. So, Mrs. Gallivan.
Yeah, I would just add to that, I was always skeptical about that being the only avenue to pursue. And, you know, it doesn't mean that the problem has gone away. It just means that what would have been a reasonably easy solution isn't on the table. But, you know, Massachusetts has an excellent public school system, something that we should want to be proud of and protect, and we'll just continue to advocate for the fact that cities and towns need help from the state. But it was disappointing.
No, very much so, and I think to that point, perhaps, and we've discussed in the meetings in the last few months, the Circuit Breaker Initiative, which is an initiative that reimburses districts for very high special needs costs through the state budget. We were able to advocate successfully. My colleagues, I'm unable to advocate for that, but my colleagues were able to advocate successfully for close to full funding of the Circuit Breaker in both last year and this year's budget, which amounted to tens of thousands of additional dollars coming in to our budget and helping us in a time of crunch in this fiscal year. So that's one avenue. So we, again, just tonight we have other options, but it's just something that I know many people in the community have been following and aware of for a long time, and it is quite disappointing early on a Monday morning to come into that. Any other subcommittees meet
No.
recently?
No.
Excellent. Citizens' comments. By way of explanation, we would just ask when you do, this is your time to comment to the school committee. We take comments, unlike the meeting on Wednesday and the meeting in the Wednesday coming. We're unable to enter into a dialogue with you, but we would just ask if you could give us as much information as possible, name, street address, and if you would like to follow up with an email or maybe give Mrs. Mortali your contact information. We can follow up with you with your concerns, and we would just also like to reiterate that we generally ask you to keep your remarks within about 3 minutes, within reason, and we are unable to A, get into a dialogue with you, but B, to comment on the character of any of our employees in public session as well. So I have my notepad here, and I would just ask you make a line close to the microphone, and we'd love to hear your comments this evening.
The other one?
No.
Okay. So I'm Katia Santiago Taylor, 12 Raymond Ave here in Walpole. I'll give you my email. I just wanted to address you quickly, Mr. Ryan, for a second. If the only thing that you got from the meeting, last week's meeting, was that Walpole has a bullying problem, you and I were in a different meeting. So I am going to thank you, Mr. Lynch, Dr. Lynch, for at least taking some ownership for some of the mistakes that the school committee and you as a superintendent have done in the past. So I'm here because it obviously is not a bullying issue, and it's not just for the community. It's not left to the community to make this issue go away or work towards making our children to have a better experience and a safer experience in the high school or in the middle school. So what I wanted to ask, what I wanted to say with a question is that it's obviously not up to the community only, and the recent email that the principal Ambush sent, I'm still baffled by it. I'm still deeply disappointed that he would send such a horrible email to the parents, to the Walpole High School community. So I'm asking you, then you can let me know your answer. What are the steps that you're taking to address that? Because in my opinion, he should be sending an apology to everyone that received that email. And then I'm also asking you, what are the steps that we have to take as a community to get a new principal? Because honestly, I have no confidence that he is going to support a bullying, harassment-free environment in the Walpole High School. I have 2 more years before my kids make it to high school. And that is not what I want for my children. So my questions, what do I have to do? And what are you as a committee going to do in response to that email? And I'll give my email, so if you want to just send the responses later, I'm okay with that.
Thank you, Mrs. Stager.
Cheryl Campbell, 8 Brook Lane. So I was one of the parents at the meeting the other night, and I really don't know how many elementary school parents were there, because a lot of the stories that I heard were like middle school to high school. My daughter has had 2 incidences at OPR, but as I said at the meeting, I was really grateful. The teacher was so responsive. I couldn't have asked for more when I felt that there was an issue or a problem. And I don't know what you all expected last Wednesday when we had the meeting, or last Thursday. I know that you kind of wanted to come into it with, like, let's move forward, we recognize there's a problem. But there was so much anger in that room. And I think in part, you know, standing back and listening to a lot of those parents, I could really understand just that whole feeling of isolation. And my problem was like small compared to what some of those parents felt. And like I said at the meeting, you know, maybe for a while you're gonna be judged and you're gonna have to own it. And I hope, like, when we go into the next meeting, not that the whole meeting should be concentrated on that, but maybe just 5 to 10 minutes to say, we're available to meet with parents. You know, I know people have been contacting the superintendent's office. I actually spoke with him the other day. But just to let people know, like, you're doing something about the past. You might not be able to change the past, and for some people it may never be enough. But you're like, I'm gonna listen. Maybe they wanna feel validated by you just hearing what they have to say, whether it be in writing or in person. Maybe that starts to rebuild some of the trust, and then, you know, working with over 100 people down the road, you know, that will build a new trust, and then let you be judged on that. I guess that's how I feel, because, right, I felt bad for you, but I felt bad for the parents as well. because I don't think that was easy for anybody to sit there and hear that. And I think for the parents, it was like really painful, and there was maybe years of anger that were built up. So I would just ask that truly going into the next meeting, you just take that maybe 5 or 10 minutes to say, this is what we're doing, you know, we're available, if the superintendent is available, whether it's in person or by phone or whatever. And then, like, okay, we're doing that, those are the things we're doing. I'm reviewing the cases, I think you had mentioned that, and then kind of, you know, moving forward. But I think we do have to still recognize right now what people are still feeling, because I think the emotions are still very raw. So just please take that into consideration. Thank
Ms.
you.
Campbell. Anyone else?
Question.
Mr. Drudell, you never get to come to meetings. Nothing? Okay.
Is there extra money for us from the finance committee?
Are you the current chairman of the finance committee right now? Shake him down before he walks out. Thank you, and obviously we have our formal mechanisms for reaching out to the committee through the website, which we take 24/7, and we're grateful for your coming. The next order of business is approval of warrants, donations, and minutes.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the payroll warrant from May 31st, warrant number S848A, for the amount listed in your packet.
Second.
I have a motion by Mrs. Syrick, a second by Mrs. Muccini. All those in favor? Opposed, abstained, 700.
Like to make a motion to approve the accounts payable warrants from June 7th, warrant number 218049, and from June 14th, warrant number 218050, for the amounts listed in your packet.
Second.
I have a motion by Mrs. Syrick, a second by Mrs. Muccini. All those in favor? Opposed, abstained, 700. Gift and donation approval. Would someone like to read the list of donations? If I could give it to you. Fair enough. I think between the 5 of us, we have 2 packets up here.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the following donations and gifts to the Johnson Middle School Retail Business Services Stop and Shop A+ Program Commission in the amount of $806. And also to the Johnson Middle School from Bay State Textiles Incorporated Recycling, the amount of $28.
Second.
I have a motion by Mrs. Muccini, a second by Mrs. Syrick. All those in favor? Opposed, abstained, 700. I have approval of minutes. Mr. Ryan.
I'll make a motion to approve the regular meeting minutes from May 31st as listed in the packet.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Ryan, second by Mrs. Muccini. All those in favor? Opposed, abstained, 700.
And I'd like to make a motion to approve the executive session meeting minutes from May 31st as listed in the packet.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Ryan, second by Mr. Breen. All those in favor?
I should have to abstain, I wasn't there.
I don't think, no, you don't have to.
Doesn't matter if
That's
I've
a
read the
thing.
notes, okay.
Correct. Opposed, abstained, 700. All right. There is a need for executive session for the purpose of conducting a strategy session in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel. I need to poll the committee.
Make a motion to go into executive session for the stated purpose.
Second.
Yes.
Motion by-
Yes.
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 Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Excellent. So ends the regular meeting of, what day is it? I apologize. June 14th of the Walpole School Committee. We will be going into executive session. June 18th. Fair enough. Without returning. So thank you very much.